video of ReactJS, we are going to learn about how we can manage states. So recently I have been visiting number of documentation where I can show the best use cases that represent how to handle ReactJS states, and I found that this is the best one in ReactJS, whatever they are showing. So in this example, they show how to use the reducer as well as state together. So for example, here I notice that the examples are really good, as well as they really show how each of these example can be used in multiple use case scenarios. For example, here we can see that we can manage first name last name as state and then pass it in a form or something. So for example, if I write something, it just shows something, right? Then it shows some of the complicated scenario also. For example, here if you want to do a collapsible menu item or something, it does show some of the internal state, and then there are some other places where we can see that based on the button click we see some data changes. So there are a number of ways to do the same thing in ReactJS, but they have provided some guideline in terms of like how to handle states. And one of the good example I found is this one, extracting straight logic into reducer, because reducer is something very useful when we want to handle state as well as use it in multiple component in the child component or somewhere, as well as every time there is a change of the value we can handle with the reducer and actions. Though it's part of Redux side, but knowing reducer how it does internally things is really helpful. So if we think about the definition of use reducer, we can search for use reducer in React. What we notice is like it takes a reducer and it takes the initial argument, and there's a init definition. So if we see here one of example, there is a reducer and there is a initial state, right? Reducer is something which also a function which takes a state and an action. Now what does it mean? So basically, if we can think about let's talk about this to-do list, right? In to-do list we have the task reducer, which is a reducer function, and we have the initial state, and we pass those, and this task will be updated or send whatever need to be done based on the dispatch what you need to do. So this is the same example that they are saying is the initial state and reducer. The init is the init function. I never see this is used, like hardly. Mostly we use this reducer and initial argument. So this is how the reducer work. Let's talk about the dispatch. So in the reducer, as you have seen, we have an action as well as state. Now if we want to dispatch something, like for example here we have a dispatcher as we have a type, we have a increment edge, and now in the action here we will say that action.type and that give me the action. Pretty much that's the most use case scenario, and this is a very good example. For example, we have a state and dispatch as well as we set the initial argument 42. Now if we dispatch type increment edge, we can type, hey, give me the type equal to increment edge, then we say that edge equal to state.edge plus 1, so it will always increment by 1. So every time we increment, it just increment by 1. So now my initial state always get changed, right? And this dispatch helps me to dispatch that pretty much. We can see the more code how it's done. Like we have a button and we have this button label as increment edge. On click of the button, we see that dispatch type increment edge, right? If we have something decrement, type equal to decrement, something different, we will say like, okay, if type equal to something, and then in the dispatch we could do something like this also. So one of example could be, I don't know if we can type, yes, we can say decrement, I don't know if it's valid, decrement edge. Now we can say if type equal to decrement, we can say edge minus 1. Now if we see, we can now decrement the value as well as we increment the value. Now we'll see this use case in a lot of real-time project also, and this is very solid information here. Now let's see what else we have. Now reduce function as well as like we can get like change name, whatever, it can be anything. We can get the value or state the value. One thing is pretty much like we know that in JavaScript is passed by reference, so that's why we always return a new data instead of changing the state totally, which is not a good approach. Pretty much that's pretty much we have now. We have this lot of initial state, um, and we can do directly to the push to the initial state. This pretty much we have now. Now let's go to our example where we talked about we will create an app. We should gonna have this to-do list, and then we can add those items. We can edit those items in inline, which is pretty cool actually, and we can delete as well as we can just flag those items is done or not done. Usually we can use create react app, something like this. This is a create react app, is a npm package which will help us to create a boilerplate of react app, but I really don't like this honestly. What I like is I like to use bit for my starting the react app. So they have some template which we can run easily. So for us it's react, because for react they have ReactJS or JS version. Let's use the JS version. So what we can do to start our project, we can just write that I already have Node.js installed in my local machine, which is 16, and in npm version is 8.3. Let's start. I will use yarn. My yarn version is 1.22. Yarn. Then I can say create bit react app template react. Now it will gonna create me a react app called react app. I can go to my react app. I can run a yarn directly. While it's installing, we can also open our app in VS Code. You can use whatever code editor you like, but I do like to use VS Code for this kinds of project. If I have a bigger project, maybe I will use something different. So we see that we have this source where we have app.js, and this is just the boilerplate we have now. And they have given example with the state value, how the state value get changes every time we click this button. Our app installation, npm installation is done. We can say yarn dev, and that will start our dev server at this port. Now let's go to our local host. We see that our app is loaded already. Now the basic example that is given is like we click on this counter and the state is updated here. Every time the count is updated, what we're gonna do is keep it until here and remove everything. Now what we have is this. Let's keep everything side by side. First thing first, we want to be able to, let's see the project, how the project looks like. I believe it was somewhere here. Yeah, so we have this list of items which we show, as well as a input text box and a header. Now for the header, we will be using just a text message like h1. So let's create this app first. So we're gonna name it as to do app, and then we're gonna import our react from react. Is it done? And now say to do app import we say First you're gonna say h1. Let's see is rendered or not. Okay, we have to import this here in our app.js. Now import okay, we have our header already. Now we're gonna write all our code in this place, which we have now. First thing first, we need to have our initial to-do list, right? So initial to-do list, what we want to have is mainly our task name and ID, because we want to be able to find that the task is available or not, and also we want to know if it's done or not, those things, right? So let's create our initial list. We can say initial task equal to, we say first one ID equal to 0, then takes equal to task 1, and then done we say false. Now for the second one, done. We say 2 3 3, this is, let's say, true. Now we want to be able to display this list first, right? So to display this, what we do, we use JavaScript map operators, where we can just directly map over the list, something like this. We have this initial task dot map. Now what we can do is render those lists. So for rendering, just to show those lists, we can use some kinds of list operator, maybe something like this, and then id equal to task.id. We can wrap this with the URL also. Now we want to show our list item data. So to show the data, first we want to display this checkbox, then the text as well as those buttons. Now if you notice, if we have edit, we have input text box also. To show that we want to be able to have some initial state or something like that, that can give us either edit mode or normal mode. However, since we want to display those lists first, we can just go with those checkbox, this text as well as this button first, right? Now in real scenario, we're gonna create another function in a new file. Since this is a small project, what we're gonna do, we just gonna create a constant function, inline function here, which is gonna display our to-do list. So to be able to do that, let's call it task, and this task will gonna accept this task as a parameter, as well as we want to be able to know any changes happen in the task, as well as we want to in the edit, whenever there is a change, as well as if we delete, we want to be able to remove it, right? So we select, we on delete. And another thing is like, if we click here, we wanted to be able to know what is the which of the task is in inline edit mode or is a read mode. So for that we're going to use react state. State is something which holds some values for us to be able to internally use it. So what we can do is like we can say constant editing and set is editing equal to state. If you see state is imported, now by default our edit mode is false. Next thing is we want to know if it's a edit mode or not. Based on that we can show that input text box or the text itself. But for that let's use the plain text first, and then we can change our setup. The first thing is we have a checkbox. So what we can do is like input type equal to checkbox, and we say on change we can do on change. This on change we can bind with this on change and pass the task as well as we say that because based on the check is done or not done. So if we know that e dot target dot checked will gonna give us if it's checked or not, so which we can do, and pretty much we can say check equal to task dot done, and that's it, our input text box. Next we need this, let's say we keep it as a text first for now. So we have this text value which will be our task dot text because we set this value as a text. And next thing we have this edit button. What we can do is like we can say button on click. We can say based on the click we can create another function called toggle edit equal to set is editing equal to not is editing toggle edit, and we'll say that edit. Next we have delete also, right? We can say button on click, we say on delete, we say delete. Now we notice that we have another called save also that come when there is a input text box. We're gonna handle it later. Maybe we just add that for now also. We say save for when there is a save button we can just toggle it again, so we have all the button what we need. Now we can just now pass our task equal to task, and now we need this on change. We're gonna create our on change function here, and then we're gonna have our on delete. Okay, let's see what's going on now. Oh, okay, we have to, did we call our function? Yes, Everything is up to date. What's going on? So map, we have this. Let's see what's happening. We have the UL. Initial state is not loaded. Okay. Oh, we have to return. Okay, now we have our tags 1, 2, 3. We have our save button, edit button, as well as delete button. One thing is missing is this key, which you can do like this. Tags.id. Okay, now we have this task which we can change all this thing. Now what we need to do is on change of this value, we need to be able to change all this data, right? Now, because our function, which we can see here, if we say we can log all this data. Our buttons are functional, but whenever we do some changes, we are not able to see the changes. For that, let's start with first our reducer. So to create a reducer, we need to first create the reducer function. So we're gonna say, we can create outside also. We're gonna say construct to do app. Reducer function, we're gonna take a task as well as action. Now we can just play with the switch, which we're gonna say action dot type. Now we can write our case at we have seen that when there is a reducer, to return something, we need to be able to return a new object with the task, right? So what we're gonna do is keep the task as well as create a new object with the id from the action.id. Text will be action.text as well as done. Initially is false. Now this is our added cases. What about if we change any value when we have an input text box? So we're gonna copy and paste. What we do is we'll say changed, and then we need to first figure it out which value has been changed, right? Now what we can do is we can say task.map, because it will gonna return all the value, and then we say task and from here we're gonna say if my task.id equal action.id, action.task.id, we're gonna say return action task, else what we're gonna do is we're gonna return whatever task we have. So let's see if everything is fine. If task.id equal to action.task.id, return action.task. We can do this code. We are missing a bracket from somewhere. Yep, it's good. Now, what about delete cases? We can say case deleted. We can say return task dot filter task dot id not equal to action dot id. Now we have all the three cases. How about now we will need to define our reducer inside our app. So for that, what we can do, we can say constant equal to task as well as dispatch use reducer. As we have seen, these take two arguments. First one is the reducer, which we have done just now. We should be to do app reducer. You know, we can say this is better naming. And our initial state is the initial task. Now, instead of initial task here, what we can do, we can pass the whole tasks, and that will do the same for us. Yeah. Let's go to next step, which is we want to be able to whenever there is a change, we wanted to dispatch those data, so our saving or everything is take place, as well as we want to be able to add a new task. First, let's do the add new task. So add new task, what we need to do is we need to add the input text box here. We can say input task and value equal to maybe empty for now, and on change we can say now this is our input text box. Now we need a button also. We can say button on click. We'll say add task, which is gonna send the dispatcher to our event, but for now we're gonna do the same. I'm gonna just log it, and pretty much that's it. We're gonna say add. Now we have this add button, as well as we can add this whatever we want to. Now let's do our part for adding the state, because we wanted to be able to set the state whenever we add the text here, as well as update that value. So for that, what we're gonna do, we're gonna say constant text set state. We have a empty value, and this value we're gonna set is a text, as well as for on change we're gonna say set text equal to e dot target dot value. Now let's talk about the button. So whenever there is a change of this button, now we can write anything, as well as that will gonna work. Yeah, but whenever we click on add button, we want to be available in the this in the bottom. So for that, let's do that work. So let's say we want this button to be added. Okay, now we know that we have this dispatch, and we need to be able to send the text ID and type. So what we can do is we can say dispatch, and then we can say type edit, and we say that ID, we're gonna put a random ID. Maybe for now let's put one on. We can create a random ID later. And for the text, we're gonna set whatever text available in our text. Okay, now let's try it. Add, there is a issue. Let's figure it out what's going on. So we have this button. On click of this button, we wanted to be able to send those data. We dispatched the, okay, it's a small case. We haven't handled the exception case here. So for that, what we do is we add an exception scenario. Let's do that. So if there is a default, we say that throw error unknown action, we cannot type. Let's try again. Now it says cannot property ID. What it did, and ID equal to 1. So how are you doing it? So we have a added as a type in the action. Let's see what is the action we are passing. That added text, which is fine. Now what's the issue then? So we have to return. Forget to return from here. Let's add this. Now it's adding whatever we add. Now there is an issue with the one-on-one. This is happening because we are always adding an ID with one-on-one. So what we can do, we can take the last ID and we can just increment by 1. That's one way, or we can randomly create one more IDs. Let's create a random ID. There are a lot of library doing it. For now, we're gonna take a timestamp and then create that ID. So you can say new get time millisecond. This will gonna give us a unique ID every time we add a new one. So if you see, if I add my action giving me something 93, I don't know, 210. So you can get it in this second. There's another function I create. Okay, yeah, this one. I think this is the one. Okay, time. Now if we do, we have this very long ID, but it's very unique. We can add. Next thing we want to do is to be able to make it work for whenever there's a task done. If you see, if we click here, it doesn't do anything. So we wanted to make it done. So let's go to the code. um, so we have checkbox which has on chains, and we're sending this on chains, but we are not doing anything on chains. So that, so for on chains, what we can do is we can dispatch a new dispatcher. So what we can do is this, we can say dispatch. Now we can say type equal to change, and we can say task equal to task, which should be task, because below in the on chains we are passing that down equal to whatever it is, and then we're passing all the task details. So the whole object is sent here with a flag called whatever we send. Now on chains we can just dispatch the whole object whatever we have. Now let's try it out. We try here. Okay, we have issue now. Task is not defined. Let's see. Okay, task, my typo. Now let's put it down. Yes, this is working. Now let's try delete. So for delete we have this function, and what we do is if there is a click on the delete, we send this function already. Now we can dispatch again delete, type equal to deleted, and we need to send id, which is send task id. I'll try it out. Is it delete? My item is not getting deleted. So let's see. We don't have the id correctly. So what are you doing? On click we are directly sending the delete, which is not correct because it will gonna, we need to know the id which we are deleting. So for that, let's change it out so we know that we are deleting only the id. So let's try that. On delete, for getting the id we can say task the id, but I did a mistake. X not t. Yes, okay. Yeah, there it is working. I can add new delete as much as possible. Now if you notice, my every time I add, this doesn't get deleted. So what we can do is every time we send the add, we can set the value to empty. So for that, what we can do is we set the text dispatch on click of the button. We can set text empty. So now let's try. Our values are getting deleted and the new value is added. Now let's try with the edit functionality, and this edit will come with save and all that stuff, right? Now we notice that we have this text and save. These two would be enabled only when we click on the text edit button, right? So we can remove this and we can remove this 3 and create a functionality, right? So what we can do is we can say, hey, if there it is in edit mode, then only show this, otherwise show that, something like this, right? So what we can do is like this. In React it's very easy. We can say is editing Then during the edit time, we want to show a input text box. If editing, then we want to set a input text box text. We can do like this, as well as the set button, which is this. And if it's not in edit mode, then we want to send something else, so we can use maybe a trinary operator. We can say text okay. Now we have this everything. Let's try it out. So if we select on edit, we have this text as well as save button. Our save button is still not done yet because we wanted to be able to on save, we just only toggle the edit. However, we want to be able to dispatch those change data also as well, right? Because let's say if we go edit, we write something, it doesn't do anything. For that, the value of this text will be task.text. So now we have the text whenever we go to edit mode for each of this item. There's the issue called without a on change, so we have to change the on change. We shouldn't do it. There's one more thing, we need to set a local state, because every time we want to save, we want to send those data to the front end. So for that, what we can do is we can say constant text set text is state. Initially we're gonna set it as task.text. Now this text can go as here. Now this will also work for whenever there is a change. Now on change, what we want to do is every time there is a change on this input text, we wanted to be able to send those on change data. So what we can do is on change, what we can do is get the value and we say on change. We can pass the state text data, which we can also set, or we can have a local function which can does that. But in that case, what is easier is we can just pass the task as well as the text to new value. So new value will be e.target.value. In that case, we don't need text anymore. We can just directly pass without text. We can pass this style task 1 2 3 1 2 3. What's the issue? 1 2 3. Okay, everything is good. Now this is our to-do list. We have done delete, add, make a task done. Pretty much we have all the functionality. Let's recap what we have learned in this. We have started with the initial state at the beginning, and then we try to display those lists here using a map function, and then we have those input text box as well as initially we had only some button. We make those button visible every time. However, then we discuss about the we don't use node anymore. We disclose we created the reducer. Maybe we don't need to do app. Let's set to do reducer and pass this here. And once we created the reducer, we have those added change and delete state. and then every time there is a change, we pass those data in the reducer, and on delete we delete this data. We also was able to change those field dynamically. Whenever we have a edit click, we just change those display, and then this is our delete. This is not a production ready code, but I hope we have learned a lot of it from this code. I will upload a refactor version of this code in GitHub for reference. I hope this was useful. Thank you.